Beautiful. So yeah, no worries. I have I'll mod the chat because I got it open right behind my Zoom screen here. So Peter, you just sit there and look handsome and be wonderful.
I can do at least some of those things.
No, I heard you're gonna give me a lesson in broadcasting because I could use it.
Oh, geez. No, I've listened to all your guys' shows. I don't think you need any help from me.
Yeah, no worries.
Well, that's nice. Thank you.
Want to bet? Then get in on the action at Sports Interaction. The boys of summer are back on the diamond and March Madness is on deck. Bet pre-game, live in play, or on one of our many prop bets. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Head to sportsinteraction.com/SCPN. Or in Ontario, download the app now using the QR code at the bottom of the screen. 19 and older, and please play responsibly. Leafs fans, welcome back to Game Over Toronto, where we had a little hot mic incident at the beginning of the stream. But nonetheless, me and Lauren are here with you guys live in the second half of a back-to-back where the Leafs played the Calgary Flames. And apart from that, let's ignore the first two periods. On that third period, we played fantastic, and we ended up getting the win. So we're glad to see all of you guys out. There's quite a few people in the chat tonight, and with it being a late game, glad to have you guys on. And I'm sure we also have a bunch of new fans here tonight as well, considering our special guest for tonight. For those of you guys that are new, welcome to the show. This is a Game Over Toronto. My name is Harnish, and I have my lovely co-host Lauren here with us today. And to help break down the game, we have our very own Peter Klein from Game Over Calgary. Welcome to Game Over Calgary, or Game Over Toronto. Sorry, I should say, Peter. Welcome. Glad to have you on.
Yeah, hey, happy to be here. Long time listener, first time caller. Very, very happy, and very happy that the any technical issues we would have on Game Over Calgary, I was able to bring something over here with a bit of a hot mic thing. Although the hot mic situation is it's a little bit less stressful in an environment where we're allowed to swear. Because I've been in spots where that's not necessarily the case, and that gets the heart rate going a little bit more. But yeah, no, that was a very long way of saying I'm happy to be here.
are happy to have you, Peter. Honestly, it's a little bit overdue. I mean, our teams only see each other a couple times a year, and I know it's been crazy for both of our cities and both of our streams, but it is better late than never, and it is great to have you on. And while I'm happy to have you on, and I'm sort of sorry that we beat your team, I'm glad that it ended up being a good game, because I don't know how you feel about the first even period, but it didn't seem like either team was really getting any clean looks or making
No,
anything happen.
not making anything happen is a very good way of summing that up. Like I have a notebook here, and I normally take notes, and it's normally like a couple of pages per
Yeah.
period,
Yeah.
and I'm at one full page for this whole game. Like they're just there
I'm at
wasn't
one
a
and
whole
a
lot.
third. I'm at one and a third. That's it.
Yeah, like there wasn't a whole lot there. Like it was a very Daryl Suttery game. A lot of nothing happening. Low event hockey, I think, is the nice way of putting it. But no, like this is I don't know how much of our wonderful team you've been able to watch all year long, but this is kind of the way it's gone, where hey, at least they lost, but it sure was boring. Like that's basically where we've been all season long with this team. And tonight was a pretty good summary of it, although the goaltending was better in this game than we've seen in the past from this team anyway.
And I think that's the same you can say for Toronto as well. Joseph Wall, he was brought in with Samsonov. He got a little night off after a rough one yesterday, and Joseph Wall, he looked fantastic in there. I mean, he got a little hemmed in his own. He was let out to dry, I would say, by some of our players. But let's talk about that first, because I think there was a lot of things that Calgary, in my opinion, were doing right. And it led to a lot of turnovers and what looked like sloppy play, right? So from the eye test, in my opinion, it looked like the Leafs were just out of it. It seemed like they were continuing on from yesterday's little crapshoot of a show. And uh, you saw with Marner, he was given some turnovers. Even that first goal, uh, Gustafson, he had that pass that he kind of flopped on, and that led to a goal for Calgary. But I think Calgary did a fantastic job of really putting pressure on any of the Leafs puck handlers. I think that was a huge proponent of the success that they had in the first two.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And specifically on the penalty kill, that's what they've been doing all season long. Is they're very aggressive with that. And Gustafson, a former Calgary Flame great, was the victim of that on that shorthanded goal. But no, that they put a lot of pressure on, and I think that was certainly by design. And I think a lot of that too is, as we were kind of talking about, but before we got this thing rolling, is that the Leafs have had quite a bit, as you are all well aware, the Leafs have had quite a bit of turnover over the last 72 hours. And so for a team that isn't necessarily used to everyone on their team just yet, having a bunch of dudes in your face would make that a bit more complicated as well. And so I think that was certainly a bit more of an exaggerated effort from the Flames in that way, to just kind of put the pressure on. And I thought you could see, like, it was obvious to us, so it was obvious to the players as well, that there was a bit of a thing going on. And there was a point, I think it was midway through the first period, Matthews was open for a minute, and then he finally got the pass, and it was a bit behind him. He still got a good shot away because he's one of the three best hockey players on planet Earth. But there was some frustration after, and they called it out on the Flames broadcast tonight. He was banging his stick and kind of reading some guys the riot act after. And I think that there was a bit of a shift there where Toronto started to turn it on after that point. But the Flames didn't make life easy on them. And that's something they've been doing for a little bit now, with Daryl Sutter, is just really putting a lot of pressure on the opposition.
I think so too. And the Flames, the first note I have, we're talking about the notes we have, the first note I have is Flames pressure early. And then, they end up getting the shorthanded goal. And that's the third game in a row where the Leafs have given up a goal in the first 4 minutes, which is not great. And it's funny, they read a statistic where the Flames have 843 goaltending since the All-Star break. And if they didn't tell me that and I watched the game tonight, I would not have guessed that, because Markstrom looked great all night. And while the Flames were great at putting pressure on the Leafs, they took away every chance. And what you're talking about, how everybody is sort of still adjusting to everything. I don't think Whelan Nylander picked up a single pass cleanly tonight. Like, they were just bouncing off of his puck off of his stick like crazy. And it was sort of happening to the Flames too. It seemed like both teams at certain points of the game were just trading times where they couldn't buy a pass to save their life. And it's funny, later on in the game, like the Leafs were winning in ozone time, and I was like, how is that possible? Because it felt like the Leafs couldn't get a clean entry or get any sustained zone pressure at all because the Flames were just all over them on the forecheck. And, it's that same forechecking pressure that gets them the shorthanded goal to get them up early. And, the Leafs end up tying it, thank goodness, in the second.
Oh yeah, thank God.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. Oh geez, I know where I am. Yeah, no, it's fine.
And then Kadri almost puts the Flames up early, and it gets called back, unfortunately for you, my friend. But the rest of the game seemed like the more the game went on, the more competitive it really became on both sides of it. And then it's the game starts like this, and then it slowly, the whole game just sort of tilts the more it went on. So, like I said, I didn't think that the Flames played as bad as their goaltending statistics look, but you would hope that they would make a push in the third, and it just seemed like once the Leafs were able to get on, there was no turning it off really.
No, and that same thing happened against Boston the other night. The Flames outshot Boston. I think it was 56-20. It was all Flames pressure, but then Calgary went ahead in the third period up 3-2, and about 4 minutes left. Boston got a power play and tied it. And after that, the Flames were just like, well, see you next game. And it felt like the same thing happened tonight where the Flames were hanging with Toronto, a very good hockey team. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here, but hanging with a very good hockey team. And then they get kind of a weird goal with, again, former Flame great Calle Yarncroc putting the puck in the net. And at that point, the Flames just kind of seemed like, well, fuck it, we'll just go to the next one. And that it's so disappointing. And just I actually, again, referring to our notes, I actually put when the Flames pulled their goalie with a minute and a half left, they're playing this like there's a fourth quarter coming. Like that there was no urgency, there was no pressure, there was no anything from this team. And yeah, you're right. Like it felt like as this game went along, the Leafs got more and more of the puck and the Flames got less and less of it. And they had no counter to what was happening. And I think part of that is self-inflicted. And as much as I talked about Daryl Sutter, there has been a lot of frustration in this market. And part of it tonight was like you're on home ice, you get last change. As far as I know, that's not something that's changed. I have no idea why Milan Lucic was sharing the ice with Austin Matthews at any point in this hockey game, but it was happening repeatedly. And it felt like that started to like the Flames kind of let the Leafs back in it because Matthews and Marner were able to build that momentum because they weren't exactly facing a defensive stalwart line by any stretch of the imagination. And I can't imagine why any human being would choose to do that in that situation. Like I saw there was one point, there was a scrum in front of the net and Lucic had a hold of Matthews like, oh, that's kind of fun. Wait a minute. Why are they out there together? And then you watch and it's, oh, this is happening a bunch. And it was kind of a self-inflicted thing that I think kind of let the Leafs get their mojo going and get back into this game.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because that first goal for the Leafs, this is a Marner goal, right? And who did he dangle past? Lucic, right? Lucic was there after.
Styled him.
Yeah.
Styled him.
And you feel bad for the guy. I mean, the guy was out there for such a long shift. He had no effort to even try to skate. He just threw the stick out there. It was like, please let this block Marner. But no, Marner dangles past him. And hats off to Marner. I mean, he played a fantastic game. And that shot that he got off for that goal was a difficult one. He had a lot of bodies up in front of him, and he was somehow able to get it past everyone, past Markstrom. He was buzzing tonight. Even like after that goal, that third period that we talked about where the Leafs kind of brought it back or came back to life. A lot of that, I think there was halfway through that period, there was a point where Marner and Matthews had a fantastic shift. They had, it was like 3 or 4 high scoring chances, and the Flames were just dying out there. They had a long shift again, and unfortunately the Leafs weren't able to convert on it, but that's what that's the kind of play that you need to see for them to eventually get one past them again, right?
Yeah, and that's something the Flames haven't had this year. Is that like it felt like, and this was another thing when that game started to seem like it was kind of in the balance. It felt like Matthews and Marner were like, "Hey, you know what? Let's just not lose this game, huh?" And like they kind of took this over. The Flames have had literally zero of that this year. Kadri has come close, but there hasn't really been that. We had moments last year where it would be Gaudreau doing that thing. There's been none of it, and yeah, Marner. Man, every time I watch him, there's just something about him. Even just there was a moment in the second period, the Flames had a bit of a rush and it looked like it could be something. And Marner just a quick back check steal and it goes the other way. Like he just, it's those types of things. Obviously, insanely skilled offensive player, but there's the little things he does defensively that just help you win games. That it's just like, man, like I get it's fun to make fun of Toronto, but this dude is like he's a dog for lack of a better term.
He's so good. And, there's a reason he plays on every single one of the special teams, right? He plays in overtime, he plays on the PK, he plays on the power play, and he's so good offensively, but he's so good defensively too. And we've joked on this stream. I don't know if you've heard this, Peter, but we've actually joked that eventually when the Selke Trophy is renamed the Bergeron, at some point Mitch Marner should be eligible for it because he plays so well. He almost plays as well defensively as he does forward. And I think part of the reason, relating back to what we started the stream with, I think part of the reason that these new guys are having a hard time is because I think some of the players that they have now haven't played with players that think that quickly on the ice as Mitch Marner does, right? And Jake McCabe, even though he's been playing with Jonathan Toews and Patty Kane and all of the really good players that they do have in Chicago, Mitch Marner does play at a high level where his brain is just like it's got an extra gear or something, and I think it takes even last night when the Leafs were playing against the Oilers and Matthias Ekholm looked great against the Leafs last night. And, good for him. Glad it's going well. But, I think because the Leafs have to adjust to not just one or two players, but there's like Matthews, Marner, Tavares, O'Reilly all of a sudden, Nola Chari. And it's like, oh, all of a sudden, now I don't have to adjust to just Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl or, just Johnny Gaudreau or just, one or two persons. It's like, all the way through the line. So I have to imagine that that's a contributing factor to some degree. And for them to turn around and start playing better in the third, I have to wonder if the Matthews getting a little bit frustrated made the other guys go, okay, maybe we have to try and play a little bit differently again when we're playing with somebody that's playing this hard.
Totally, yeah, and like this is going to be a weird thing, but just kind of follow me here. It can be tough to play with really good players sometimes, and I'm not equating Marner to these guys, but like there's a reason why Kunitz worked with Crosby and some other guys didn't, like there's a reason why player X works with McDavid, but some other guys haven't. Like it's just sometimes you just need to know where to be. It's not always just NHL 23 where you just throw a hero line out there. I was going to say 2004 and really date myself, but you don't just throw a hero line out there, sort by overall and just roll with it. There is a chemistry that needs to be built. And the Leafs are in a spot, as you guys are painfully aware, they're not moving up in the standings and they're not moving down in the standings enough for it to really matter. So this is a time where you can kind of figure this stuff out. And I think it's why it was smart of Kyle Dubas to make, if you're going to make 84 trades, make them as soon as you can. And I think it's smart to kind of let everyone kind of gel because it takes time. It's taken the whole season in Calgary. You could just like, it only happened around January where it looked like Huberdeau wasn't thinking out there and he was starting to react to the game. So some guys take a little bit longer than others. For you guys, that there isn't going to necessarily be as much of a reliance as with Calgary, where the entire season was kind of resting on Jonathan Huberdeau being awesome. So I think it will come and you could start to see it forming as this game went along.
Yeah, definitely. And like you mentioned, I mean, a player that needed time to cultivate. Let's talk about Luke Schenn. I mean, he took 10 years to come back to Toronto. And who do you pair beside? Morgan Rielly, a player that I believe was drafted the day before he got traded away as well, right? So it's funny seeing them kind of on a line together. But I think they played well together, but there was definitely a lot of times where these guys you can tell they just don't have the chemistry, right? The one thing that I found what was really disappointing though was, again, we talked about that first goal that happened for Calgary, right? But what we don't what we didn't mention was right before that goal happened, there was another turnover, right, which led to a shorthand chance and pinged off the bar, right? And this play involved Riley, Nylander, and Matthews. Three of our senior guys, they've been in the system for so long, so you can't say it was a lack of chemistry for those guys, right? Nylander plays Backlund as he's going around the edge of the rink, and he doesn't apply a lot of pressure. Backlund's able to skate past Nylander. Riley during this time was sticking back, kind of had his eye on Lindholm, who was in front of the net as well. And as soon as Backlund was able to get away from Nylander, Riley had to make the decision to start pinching, right? And during this whole moment, Matthews was there. Matthews was watching this go down, and he was puck watching instead of realizing that once Riley goes to go pinch Backlund and he has to go get Lindholm at that point, he does nothing. He just stays there and just stands there, right? And Lindholm gets a great shot, pings it off the bar. Unlucky for Calgary, doesn't go in. Luckily for Matthews, it doesn't though, because we would be on his ass for that. It's egregious plays like that where it's disappointing to see some of our stars and our veterans and the leaders within our team not contributing defensively. And Matthews, he's been great defensively. We've talked a lot about how he's kind of stepped up his game in that aspect this year, but there's blips here and there, and in the playoffs, they're gonna come to bite you in the ass, right?
Oh, 100%. And those are like, this sounds very old white hockey guy of me. Those are winning type plays, right? Like those are the just little difference maker things. Like, it's one thing for it to be a Thursday in March against the Flames, but when it's May and it's Tampa Bay, that's a little bit different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can talk about like how much the regular season may mean and stuff like that, but it's those types of winning habits that you need to establish now, or else it will bite you in the butt for the 86th time in the postseason out there. Like it's those types of things that Boston does so frustratingly well and Tampa Bay does so well and bad teams don't, and those are the types of just little small things that are going to be able to put you over the hump.
Absolutely. And you make a good point about, that's fine to do in March, but are you going to do it in May? Because even though they're professional athletes, and I understand that I am a layman and I have no authority on the subject, but is it really so simple as to just be like, well, I'm just going to do it then?
Right.
Like, okay, so why aren't you doing it now? Like, you don't need to do it now. You don't think it's useful to do it now. You don't want to do it now. Like, what is it? Because is it just a lack of like care, and you're over the regular season, you know who you're going to face, and you're just sort of chugging along to the playoffs, and you just want to get there and get this over and done with? Because if you waste the next, 20 games, then that's going to reflect, because Tampa is going to, we know what Tampa does. In the case of us, right? We've unfortunately been tormented by the Atlantic Division and how well Tampa and Boston, all these other teams have been playing. And when you make these repeated failures in the playoffs in the first round over and over again, and it's these same habits that existed in years past when we lost in the first round, to see these coming up again, it's like, oh, we're just here again. Like, it feels like Steve's favorite reference of Lucy with the football in Peanuts, right? And just like, here we go, because you just think it's just going to magically show up on game one of the playoffs. You're going to put on a new shirt that says Stanley Cup playoffs on it, and there it is. It's going to be sitting for you in your locker room, because it doesn't work that way. And if you don't build those habits now, they're not going to just be there when you want them to be. That's not how it works, unfortunately, I don't think.
No, and it's not how it works in any facet of life, right? Like, think of any habit that you try to build in whatever it may be, like we're around the time where a lot of New Year's resolutions have already kind of faltered because it doesn't turn into a habit. It's just oh no, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it whenever. Like, it's that this isn't just a hockey thing. This is an everyday life sort of a thing. And we saw it out here too with the Flames. Obviously, the playoff failings of this team not as public as the one that you guys may have, given the difference in the spotlights. But forever, this team, like they finished first in the division a couple of times and flamed out in the first round. Whether, pardon the pun, whether it was against the Avalanche or whether it was the Ducks or someone like that, it was always. They do some great stuff in the regular season. Okay, this year it's going to be different. We got Troy Brouwer. No. This time we have James Neal. Look, we got Milan Lucic now. Everything's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Brian Elliott's in goal. Don't worry about it. Mike Smith's in net. Hey, they got Jacob Markstrom now. Everything's going to be fine. There was always this kind of like window dressing of, okay, well, now we have this guy, so everything's going to be worked out. But it's that core that needs to get it. It's Johnny Gaudreau, phenomenal player. I hear he's doing wonderful things in Columbus. But when it came down to playoff time, he was very quiet. Same thing with Sean Monahan, and a lot of that was injuries. But you have these things where it's like, yes, we've established the regular season. You're pretty dope. Matthews scored 1 billion goals last year. Like we've established for those 82 games, dude is awesome. And he's still probably great in the playoffs as well. We just don't get to see it a lot because it's those little things, again, that Kucherov and Point and all those guys do. Now you need to figure it out. And it's kind of like you've been beaten over the head with this. How haven't you figured that out yet? You know, it's just, and I'm just watching as a relatively neutral observer. I would imagine there's a bit of frustration on your guys' part with that.
That's putting it delicately.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is we can see the skill and we know what
they have the games. We know
exactly.
that they can do them and play well.
Exactly.
They do it 60% of the time.
Yeah.
And then there's games like last night where you're just like, what is happening? Like, it's like every single one of the players has a twin, and a couple times a month, the twins swap out and be like, wouldn't this be fun?
Exactly. And Matt Wilkins in the chat, he mentioned that even tonight, that Yarncroc goal, that was exactly a playoff style goal. Like we were talking about how they had the lack of effort, and then they turn around and just 2 periods later, Yarncroc gets a fantastic goal, and that was all started by Nylander, one of our senior guys, a guy that should be playing well, and he gets a great turnover. Riley, a guy that was making a lot of defensive mistakes, he makes a great offensive one where he beats Huberdeau, hurls towards the net with some speed, and goddamn does he have some speed. This guy's fast, and he gets a great shot on Markstrom. Even when Markstrom blocked it, he was able to be quick and try to get that rebound, and that put the puck in a perfect position for Yarncroc to go and just skill it past Markstrom's pads, right? And that's exactly what Matt was talking about as well, and what we were talking about as well, where they have the talent, is just being able to apply themselves the entire game and not just the third, right?
Mm-hmm.
Consistency.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this is where that gets built. You know, like you said, like Lauren, you said perfectly, you can't just flip that switch. You guys have tried a bunch. It just, it doesn't just flip. And how many times, like going back to winning plays, how many times would you see a shot like that? Riley shoot it. Oh, it's going to miss. And he just kind of peels off and goes back. Instead, he sticks with the play, just makes a subtle little play. And hey, would you look at that? They scored. And it ends up being the game winner of a very tight, very important hockey game.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, if I had a nickel for every time I heard, and Riley fires it wide on the net, it's just like, oh my gosh. And he, you know, he's been injured and in and out of the lineup a little bit this season, and it looks like he's turning things around, which is great. And, you know, it is those little plays and those little forechecking moments of not being predictable and not necessarily, I am all for sticking to the rule book when it comes to the majority of plays. But sometimes the other team has watched your game tape enough that they know what you're going to do on your power play. So they just crush it because they know what you're going to do because you're a little bit too predictable. And the last little while, the Leafs haven't been getting the opportunities that they have because they aren't trying to make any sort of different plays to mix it up a little bit. Even though they're mixing the lines up, they're sort of beating the same drum over and over again the same way without changing the rhythm and asking why it's not a different song. And, you know, the little play tonight, you know, getting that rebound and causing some chaos in front of the net is what leads to the second goal and ends up being the game-winning goal. And, you know, the last couple games, there's been times where they're getting their best opportunities in the neutral zone on a quick changeover, and then all of a sudden they're back the other way and they catch the other team with their pants down, essentially, right? And the Leafs power play has been so up and down this year, And I think that if they make small differences and they're willing to take just a teensy bit more of a risk. Now, having said that, they got scored on shorthanded today, so
Yeah.
maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
And
But
that was off of Eric Gustafson too, a
yeah,
guy that looked like he
yeah,
was being a power play specialist, right?
yeah. You know, little moments like that where you're trying to get set up. You know, they start the second period on the power play and they waste 20 seconds because they want to get set up instead of going in off the rush. And in the playoffs, you're not going to get lots of power plays. So why are you wasting 20 precious seconds trying to get your drop back pass when you're already in the neutral zone and you already have the other team on the back foot? So, you know, Peter, looking at your team, do you think that we, as because we don't watch the Flames all the time, do you think that we are looking at the game maybe differently than you are, simply from the fact that you're sort of expecting them not to come back in the third, whereas we're, you know, as Leaf fans, we're like, oh my gosh, they don't come back in the third, so they're going to come back in the third because the Leafs just allow that sort of thing.
Hmm. No, it's funny to have like the two heartbreaks going head to head. Like which team that always screws it up is going to screw it up the less. Let's find out in the third period. But no, like I do think we are looking at this a little bit differently because like this is a Flames team, and I know they weren't losing going into the third period. They may as well have been, but they have zero come from behind wins when trailing going into the third period this year. Like actually none. Like they just that this is kind of what they do, where they just kind of maybe they hang around some games, maybe they don't. They've started to get a few more high danger chances now. That's been good. There's been a lot of nights where Jake Allen got 47 saves. I don't remember any of them is an actual thing that happened to the Flames this year. So this is it's just, for lack of a better term, and to oversimplify things greatly, this just isn't a very good hockey team right now. And some of the names may suggest that they are a good hockey team. They're not. They haven't played like one for more than one game in a row since like November. So it kind of felt inevitable. And this felt a lot like a lot of games recently, especially against good teams. With again, I would put Toronto in there, but against Boston, they were trailing going into the third, and then he came back and took the lead, and then they lost it again. And against Vegas, they had a lead going into the third. It was 3-1. Vegas scored about 4 minutes in, and it felt over. Like it was 3-2 for the Flames, and you were just looking like, hey, they're gonna get a point out of this, maybe, and they did. But even tonight, they went up 1-0 on a goal from Coleman, and like you said, they had another shorthanded chance before that. And Noah, who I've had on Game Over Calgary, tweeted out, all right, how long is this going to last? Like, there's just this feeling of inevitability that something is going to go wrong. And at least tonight, it wasn't the goaltending. You guys have commented both that Markstrom looked good. It kind of felt like he was auditioning, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. As while I'm sure some Leaf fans have confidence in the goaltending situation in Toronto, I think there are some others that may be skeptical. And Markstrom's name out here, anyway, has come up in should we do something? They have Dustin Wolf in the American Hockey League, who is playing out of his freaking mind this year. And there's a lot of people clamoring for him to come up. And I don't know if you guys picked it up or if they mentioned it on the Toronto feed tonight, but when the first shot of the game, which I think was on the power play, and it was a long shot from Marner from the blue line, Markstrom stopped it. It was easy. It hit him right in the blasty. I keep forgetting that I'm so close to the thing. It hit him right in blasty, and they just held on to it. The crowd gave him a Bronx cheer because it's been that bad here this year. So there's just nothing has really gone the way we thought it would at any point in Calgary this season. So there's a lot of frustration. So again, short answer, extremely long. No, this went exactly how I thought. I was surprised it was this close, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, and it's funny because last season the Leafs and the Flames were on almost in like an identical mirrored trajectory in regards to like wins, points, maybe not how they played, but in regards to where they were in the standings in the seasons and points wise, they were almost mirror images of each other, and they were playing not that differently either, obviously, right? Like high flying offense and then pretty solid defensively. Only your goaltending was a little bit more consistent than ours was last year. And then, you know, the trades happen for your team in the summer. And I mean, we all thought there was going to be an adjustment period, but I didn't see this season going the way that it has for the Flames at all, because like you said, on paper, they're fantastic. You look at the lineup and it's like, holy fuck, like how are we going to beat these guys? And then tonight, you're right. It looked like the Flames have taken a teensy bit of a step backwards and falling almost back into a similar habit as the Leafs of yesteryear of oh well, they came back, so when's the next game?
Yeah. 100%. And it's weird to say when, like, to kind of pinpoint it. This started in game 8. The Flames started the year at 5-2. They were playing the Oilers. The game was tied in the third period. Markstrom comes out to play the puck when he shouldn't have come out to play the puck. And wouldn't you know it, the puck ended up with Connor McDavid, who scored. Oilers win. I think it was 3-2 the final. And after that, Daryl Sutter changed everything. And this was a team throughout training camp and through the first 7 games of the regular season. It was Huberdeau, Lindholm, Toffoli. It was Kadri with Dubé and Mangiapane, and it was Lewis with Backlund and Coleman. And then the fourth line was just whatever they vomited onto the page. But all of it was, okay, we've got a bunch of changes. Let's build chemistry. Let's figure everything out. And then after that, they changed everything. Lucic was playing on the second line for some ungodly reason. You had Huberdeau on the fourth line with Brett Ritchie for reasons that are still not known to this day. He messed with everything. And they still have yet to really find a groove. They finally have stuck with the same lines for about 8 games now, with Pelche on that second line with Kadri and Huberdeau, and with Dubé figuring out where he fits with Toffoli and with Lindholm. And then the Mangiapane, Backlund, Coleman line has been one of the best I've seen in the league this year. But it's just that they haven't been able to click, and it felt like they were starting to figure some things out, and then the coach changed everything, and it really set things back. And again, it's weird to pinpoint oh yeah, the season was lost in October, but it kind of felt like the season was lost in October. And then Markstrom wasn't the goalie that we thought he was going to be this year. If the Flames got this Markstrom from tonight for other points in the season, we're not having these discussions. The Flames are one of the teams in on these trades, instead of maybe they're trading Backlund and Lindholm to Carolina and those types of things. So no, it's just nothing has gone according to plan this season. And I think it really started early in the year, where the coach kind of messed around where it wasn't necessarily his turn to mess around.
Yeah, I think that's honestly something that I saw with Keefe earlier on the season as well, right? I mean, that third and fourth line, finally we were able to get some kind of stability in that fourth line, right? But earlier on, I mean, think about the ungodly amount of players that we had trying to make some kind of chemistry work. I mean, we had Nick Robertson. Unluckily, he had a bunch of injuries, but then Malgin, who got traded, we had Joey Anderson. Even in our defense, we had Hollowell, and it's just a ton of players were shifted in and out, and it was really hard for them to get any kind of playing time to build that chemistry. And I think Sandin is another player that kind of fell victim to that, where not only was he inconsistently in the lineup because of injuries, but he had games where he was playing well, and then he gets pulled, and then he comes back, he doesn't look too hot early on, right? Hopefully this with the trade deadline finishing up tomorrow, we'll see some kind of stability, and we'll see definite roles being figured out and placed, because yeah, we don't have a lot of time left, and in the playoffs, we kind of need to know who's going to be playing together and have some kind of inherent chemistry kind of built, right? But yeah, I want to shift it back a little bit towards our goalies, because that's been a huge talking point throughout Leafs Nation, to see if Dubas kind of needs to build on that and try to reinforce that a little bit, right? Today, Samsonov was off. He had a crap game yesterday. Joseph Wall, who was fantastic in the Marlies, and I think he had a fantastic game today as well. He was in the lineup, but are we confident that he is going to be a solid backup in the case that Matt Murray does not return, right? That's the big question. Lauren, I guess you've seen most of these games. What have you thought about this, first off?
I mean, it's hard, right? Because Wall does play well tonight, and he played well a couple of games ago as well.
Yeah.
But any goalie looks good when the Leafs play well defensively in front of them. And I don't think we need Andrei Vasilevsky to do well. We don't need Connor Hellebuck. We don't need anything, above an A-, I would even say. We need a solid B+. We need a solid 79% average. Be pretty good. And it's frustrating because, we talk about how our goalie situation is a little bit volatile, but poor Peter over here has been through a roller coaster of emotions with Jacob Markstrom because, I always joke about how the Leafs are Jekyll and Hyde, and it seems like Jake Markstrom has a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde fever. And I don't know if I envy either of our goalie situations, to be totally honest. And I don't know, you talk about at the beginning of the stream, Peter, about how at different points in the last 18 months, essentially with the Flames, there's been all these different people that are like, this is the person that's going to come in and be the savior. This is the person. All we need is this person. And I don't know that either of our teams have that person coming by 3 p.m. tomorrow. I don't know if the Leafs are going to trade for a goalie. Maybe the Leafs trade for Jacob Markstrom. Wouldn't that be a fun little flip of the tide? And I find it slightly troubling that I don't have a better answer 15 hours before the trade deadline is done, because Samsonov has had really good games, but then that game the other night was not very good, but the Leafs weren't very good around him either. So I think that they will do fine if they stick to playing defensively well like they did in the third period. But if you keep playing these spotty games, you are going to lose in the playoffs. That's how it works. Because generally there's nobody that really gets super far in the playoffs with the B+ goalie that aren't able to play really well defensively. So, I mean, I don't know that the answer is out there in the form of a goalie, because I don't think Vasilevsky, Sorokin, Shesterkin, or Hellebuck are on the trade market.
Can't imagine. No, that seems like, and I will admit, the Toronto goalie situation has gone better than I thought it would this year. I'm not a big Matt Murray believer. And Samsonov, it has been great and fine, but I feel like the Leafs are kind of playing with found money right now when it comes to the goaltending situation. And as inconsistent as it's been, if we were to do a Leafs and Flames only fantasy draft, I would still take Markstrom first of those goaltenders. And I just, like, Matt Murray, yes, he's won 2 Stanley Cups. You don't forget how to do that. I just have a tough time believing that he's going to come back. And Elliot said on the Sportsnet broadcast tonight that it sounds like he'll get Saturday against Vancouver. I have a tough time thinking like, oh yeah, he's going to come back. He's going to be perfectly healthy till June. And the Leafs are going to go on to win a Stanley Cup. Like, that would be an abnormally long run of good health for Matt Murray. Mm-hmm. And Samsonov, when you put him back in there for, like, if you roll with Murray, and then he doesn't play for 6-7 games if you do go on a deep run in the playoffs, and then Murray tweaks something, oh yeah, just go back in there against Boston, don't worry about it. Like, it just, I don't really have a whole lot of faith in that situation. And again, like you're saying, I'm not speaking from a position of strength given how things have gone here this season, but for Toronto, it just feels like there's just one like little away from everything just completely falling apart, which is too bad, because it does feel like with all of these moves, and I know we were talking about chemistry issues, but on paper, the rest of this team is really, really good. And I get the division y'all are in, but I mean, the rest of this team just seems so good that to kind of rest it on Matt Murray and Samsonov just feels very risky to me.
Yeah, definitely. And it's gonna be interesting to see. Hopefully they gel, and Matt Murray and Samsonov are able to get to a position where they're playing their best hockey like they were earlier on this season, right? But there's a lot of questions. One positive thing is at least we saw Wall has been able to keep up, and he had a fantastic game today as well. But yeah, in the likes of Lightning and even Boston. I mean, Boston got Bertuzzi today as well, so they're just getting all of the gemstones for the Infinity Gauntlet as we speak. But yeah, I mean, that's.
Have I mentioned I hate them?
Yeah,
just the worst. Peter, earlier you were like, "Oh, poor Milan Lucic," and I was about to be like, "I will never feel bad for that motherfucker." This is what he did to me in 2013.
Yeah, no, that is very fair. And like I said, we just saw them the other day, and Allmark made 53 saves, to beat the Flames in overtime. So, yeah, no, I'm again. the heartbreak of a loss on a Tuesday in March is different than what you guys have gone through with them. But yeah, watching that last night, it was just, or the other night, it's like the Flames actually outplayed them, except their goalie was just a wall for the entire night.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Welcome to getting goalied, Peter. I don't know if you've had that happen very recently, but
we have. It was just nice to get goalied by a good goalie. They flashed it up.
Fair.
This is the
Yeah.
sixth backup goalie the Flames have lost to since the calendar flipped to 2023. So,
Oy
yeah,
vey.
yeah. No, it's been that kind of year here.
Well, my condolences, Peter. My goodness.
Yeah, the game against Boston, high danger chances were 14-2 for the Flames, and they lost 4-3. So on both sides of that, the math looks really bad.
It's those damn Ross Boston guys, huh? Every
Yeah.
single one of them. They're just the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I think that's gonna do it here from us. Thank you guys. I mean, we have like 100 people still watching. Thank you guys for
Let's
sticking
go.
around. I mean, it's what time is it? 12:30. My
12:30.
brain is dying.
The late night owls in the chat right now. Guys, make sure you hit like and subscribe before we sign out, please.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, and again, thank you, Peter, for coming on. We love to have you on, and tomorrow's gonna be a fun day. We got the SDPN trade deadline show as well, and then we'll be back on Saturday. I think Calgary also has a game on Saturday too, right? Against the Wild, I believe. So be sure to tune in for that. Thank you guys for watching, and Lauren, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Lauren in the Six.
Peter?
You can find me Twitter and Instagram. I am at Primetime Klein.
Perfect. And my name's Harnish. You can find me Harnish_Patel98 on Twitter. And that's going to do it here with us. Have a great night, everyone.
Have a great night, everybody.
Bye.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.